So I said, no, you're welcome, sir. So I took the half a dozen. Mr. and Mrs. Beer, Mr. and Mrs. Daniels, and the Argentinian couple. When we reach the masjid, I said, please take off your shoes. I know it's an inconvenience we are causing the people, but it has to be done. So I said, do you know why you're taking off your shoes, sir? He says, no. I said, you remember when Moses was on Mount Sinai, God spoke to him and he said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Of course, if they were Afrikaners, I would have said, en hy sê, moenie nader kom nie, trek jou skoene van jou voete af, want die plek waar jy opstaan is heilige grond. And if they were Zulus, I would have tell them, wathi ungasondeli lapha, kumele zicathulo zakho ezinyameni zakho, ngokuba indawo umi kuyo ungumhlabathi ongcwele. I tell you, there is no better way of explaining than from his own book of authority. You see, instead of telling the old-fashioned way, my father used to do, he says, you know, you people, you go to the toilet, lavatory with your shoes, same shoes you go to the church, you got no respect for the house of God, but we are a nice, clean people. Look, it's true. But if you can kill the snake without breaking the stick, why not do that? Show him, this is from your book, sir, and we are honoring those commandments. I said, before we go into pray, we make ablution, wudu, you say abdas. I says, you know, sir, there are 3 good reasons why we do that. Number 1, purely from the hygienic point of view, I says, no one is going to find fault with a person who washes himself 5 times a day. It's a good hygienic practice. And they all nod their heads. Whether Jews or Christians, they all nod their heads. It's a good hygienic practice. Number 2, I say it serves certain psychological purpose, meaning it prepares the man mentally for prayer. Not washing because you're dirty, but you're going to present yourself before the Lord. And number 3, I said this is also another commandment given by God Almighty to the holy prophet Moses. In the book of Exodus, that is the 2nd book of the Bible, it is written, and Moses and Aaron and their sons washed their hands and their feet thereat. When they went into the tent of the congregation, they washed as the Lord commanded Moses. So I said, we Muslims are still fulfilling another biblical commandment. Though we haven't got the label of a Jew, nor yet that of a Christian, yet in all humility we claim that we are more Jewish than the Jews and more Christians than the Christians. In this, that we are trying to follow in the footsteps of the prophets. It went down so beautifully, so beautifully. Went inside the masjid, time for salat, so sit down at the back, made them to sit against the wall, and they watched the Muslim at prayer. And I came and referred to them that everything that we did, including the sujood, was in your book, sir. It is in his book. I says, you remember, you read there, it says, and Abraham fell on his face and prayed to God. I'm quoting from the Old Testament of the Christians. And Abraham fell on his face and prayed to God. And I quote again, and Moses and Aaron fell on their faces and prayed to God. And again, and Joshua fell on his face and prayed to God. When we come to the New Testament, we read that was his last days on earth, Jesus Christ. He went to the Garden of Gethsemane and he said to his disciples, wait and watch, pass up. And he went a little further and fell on his face and prayed to God. Ask them, how does a man fall on his face and pray? Except the way we Muslims do. But they are ashamed to humble themselves like their God did. It's an amazing thing. Everything the Muslim does is in his book. It is there. But he, poor man, he doesn't know. He's reading, but he doesn't understand. We understand, but we don't explain.